Hi, I'm Jason Appel from BKL. I'm with David Matthews from Dutch and Dutch Properties, and we'll be talking about the state of the property market. So there's currently a slowdown in the 5 million plus property market. What does this mean for property investors that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so Jason, there's a slowdown across the board, not just the 5 million plus market, but that certainly has suffered more than other markets in London, partly as a result of stamp duty.
Right.
But also there are lots of variables going on. International political situations, the war in Iran, and so on, all having an impact on these markets. For investors, I think investors are really struggling to find value.
Okay.
And that's the most important, I guess, takeaway. There are nuggets of value out there, but I think it's very, very difficult to find them. And it does feel like prices are still falling. And I think they've probably got a little way to go before they bottom out.
Do you think people are looking overseas? We hear of people moving overseas or looking to, and there's been a number of our clients that are curious about taking their money elsewhere. Is that something you've heard of?
100% same. I mean, so I've had numerous clients of mine move to Dubai over the past sort of 3-4 years for the beneficial tax arrangements there. If you don't need to be based in London for schools or work, I guess the attraction of moving somewhere like Dubai, or I was speaking to a client earlier today who's just moved to Crete, for example.
Okay.
I get the attraction. Yeah. So that's certainly happening. It's not anecdotal. That's definitely going on.
All sorts of Cyprus are offering up different benefits for people to move.
Yeah.
So it's much easier for people to live abroad if you can.
There's so many advantages. I mean, I love London. I love the UK, but I can understand why a proportion of people would find living elsewhere attractive.
Yeah. We did see some people running back here recently.
Yeah.
Had potentially caused themselves a few issues on some tax planning they may have done.
Right.
Coming back to the UK. So I think just be careful if you are living abroad and you have done some tax planning.
Yeah.
Just make sure where you're moving to and you've discussed it in advance, I think.
But it definitely feels like demand in that price bracket over £5 million from international or overseas buyers has waned significantly. It feels like the environment in the UK at the moment isn't welcoming to that community, from a tax point of view, or almost an ideology point of view in terms of the politics that's going on in the country.
So almost selling UK PLC to an investor is a tough sell.
Correct. Yeah. There's certainly evidence of families moving from abroad to the UK, but nothing like the sort of numbers that we were seeing 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. We've touched on the geopolitical tensions. Do you think that's had a direct impact on people's decision making in the market?
I think hugely. I mean, it's only one of the factors, and I think over the past probably 10 years, we haven't had a period of more than maybe 18 months of cool and calm heads, starting with probably Brexit in 2016, moving through to events like Grenfell, which had a big impact on the property market, COVID, the war in Ukraine, now a war in Iran. I think people are nervous, and I think people have a right to be worried about politics and the economy as well. I think that it's already been said that there's an big inflationary pressure coming very soon down the road, maybe the next sort of 4, 5, 6 months, which will inevitably mean at best the decreases in interest rates that were highlighted a few months ago by the Bank of England not happening, and at worst interest rates going up. So I think property investors are right to keep an eye on all of those things. It would be lovely to have a 2 or 3 year period of
total calm.
Of calm, that would definitely impact on people's confidence in the market.
I mean, traditionally, I've always seen that people have invested in property because they feel like you can kick it. It's something you can see. It's something that's there forever. Yeah. So hopefully you'd see that confidence in that market returning, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that for that reason, people do love property. I mean, I don't think that's changed necessarily, but the way people value it, which is critical, has definitely changed.
Yeah, and the environmental or sustainable impacts and the regulation coming in has an impact on how valuable that property could be viewed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And the prices continue to fall. And what would you say are your top 3 tips to buy-to-let investors with large portfolios at the moment?
Well, I think getting ahead of problems is definitely the number one takeaway. if you've got a refinancing coming up, get ahead of that. Look at what the options are now. Don't sort of bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Make sure you're on top of all of the compliance and regulatory stuff. You'll need to be ahead of that. If you're refinancing, a new lender's going to be doing all their due diligence on your portfolio. So make sure that you're ahead of the curve there, so that any refi can run smoothly. Bring in professionals. If you haven't got a portfolio managed by a professional managing agent, now is definitely the time to look at doing that. For the relatively small fee it's going to cost you, it could really yield great results.
I think so. The professional have a view of the market, have a better view of what other people are seeing, and can probably help advise not just you, but they have other sources of information that can help you plan going forward.
Yeah, they'll help you stay ahead of all of the compliance stuff. They'll also potentially save you a load of money in terms of contractors. Your maintenance costs, construction costs can all come down if you've got a professional managing agent on board. Insurance costs can be really benefit from having the buying power of a managing agent. So that's certainly worth considering. And I think, as with all these situations, I think it really boils down to personal circumstances. And what we're seeing is clients who have little or no debt on their portfolio are clearly going to be in a safer position than those who are heavily leveraged. But if you have got a lot of debt, it's not the end of the world. There's always a way through. Certainly the good news is that residential rents have increased over the past 2 or 3, 4 years really remarkably. And I think the Renters' Rights Act has only gone to reinforce rent rises. So that has certainly got a lot of residential buy-to-let investors out of a hole, because their income is looking a lot healthier than it was.
So the rents are holding, but the capital value isn't necessarily moving up like it has done over the last 10 years.
Exactly. So rents are going up. Yields are probably going up as well, the expected return that an investor would want on an investment. But the two, if you're lucky, cancel each other out.
Yeah. So if you're looking for income at the moment, it's still an interesting investment.
100%, I think, yeah. And that's what it's all about, in my view, at the moment. I think you're a very brave person to look for development opportunities currently, although it might be potentially the right time in the cycle to start considering those things.
Yeah.
But unless you have got real comfort on planning and an exit for a development opportunity, be very cautious. It's really all about income.
So you mentioned planning, and we touched on this when we were speaking earlier, and the changes in councils, a lot of councils in London.
Yeah.
That has an impact on the potential for planning to slow down or even stop in some circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the changing kind of political landscape, especially in London councils, and how that's going to affect planning committees and decisions taken at committee, could be really fundamental to the success of schemes.
Yeah.
And I think some local authorities potentially have gone in a direction which might make it easier to get planning, but certainly there are going to be local authorities which are made up of majority councillors who will potentially really object to any form of development.
Yep.
So I think that really has changed the landscape for developers.
Well, I've seen in my local area where the council have pretty much got in on the fact that they wanted to put a stop to a lot of the developments that were going ahead.
Yeah.
And has campaigned pretty much every day online to say as such.
I can't imagine how the planning inspectorate are going to deal with the appeals that potentially are coming down the line to them.
Yeah.
Because if local authorities are objecting to applications and there are grounds to appeal, my goodness, I'm sure developers are going to be absolutely submitting that appeal as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah.
The local committees might be overruled by the planning inspector, but it makes it more challenging for developers to get these schemes off the ground.
Definitely doesn't make it easier.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't make it easier. So what do you see investors are worrying about right now? And what should they be worrying about is, I suppose, the more pertinent question.
Good question. Okay, so I think they're worrying about where interest rates are likely to go. Mm-hmm. I think they're also probably worrying about where capital values are going.
Yep.
And they're potentially worried about whether their tenants are going to be there tomorrow or not. If you're a commercial investor, commercial property investor, that's certainly a concern. And what should they be worrying about? I suppose I get back to the regulation and compliance element of property management. That's really so important on every aspect. So they should be thinking about that, thinking about getting ahead of a refinance, as we discussed earlier,
Yeah.
and thinking about getting professional advice if they feel in any way uncomfortable about how they look after their portfolio.
Well, certainly there's been lots of new regulation coming out, and to understand how that's going to impact, I think there's a lot of nervousness about that and how it is actually going to impact people.
I mean, it's literally been one thing after the other for the past sort of 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
And all of them are well-meaning. All of the regulation that comes in, certainly post-Grenfell, was absolutely for the right reasons. The challenge for property owners and developers and investors is that this extra compliance adds a whole layer of complexity and cost and time delays to managing property. I've got an example where we manage a flat in a 100-year-old mansion block, but the mansion block happens to be taller than 18 meters. So it falls under the new regulations for the building safety regulator. And our client wants to add an ensuite bathroom into the flat. But in order to add the ensuite bathroom, we have to go to the building safety regulator to get consent first. That adds, it's probably £6,000 or £7,000 worth of cost. It adds 10 weeks to the time frame of getting the project off the ground, which is 10 weeks of no rental income, 10 weeks of debt finance, etc. So these things really do make life much more complicated for property owners.
So from our perspective, and as tax advisors, we're seeing family generational property ownership and how to pass property down from generation to generation in the most tax efficient way being a concern. The talk of IHT changes, and I think the principle is the same. I think if you understand the tax implications of what you would want to do, you can plan ahead. But it's always knowing the worst case scenario so that you can actually think ahead about it and getting ahead of it and getting some advice as early as possible, I think. Yeah,
totally. I mean, every situation is different. Every building is different. Every building owner is different. There are so many kind of nuanced situations. And when it comes to inheritance tax planning in particular, your family setup and circumstances and how wealth it will be passed down is complicated, and certainly requires good advice.
And what we've seen is situations do change. We've seen cases where planning's put in place with the best intention, works very well. As the generations grow, some people move abroad, and the advice needs to be relooked at, essentially.
One child needs the money, one child doesn't need the money yet. And that's a moving feast for every family, I guess.
I've had an occasion where a property was handed down to daughters who get on wonderfully well. But the pressure of trying to run a family portfolio together is causing stress to the family relationship, which is so some planning just about how to deal with that as well.
We see that quite a lot. We see that the generation that built up the property portfolios, for example, learnt on their feet over the past 30, 40 years and get to know all the tenants. They know all the idiosyncrasies of all the buildings. And then, of course, when they die or the properties are passed down to the next generation, they're at it cold. They don't know they don't know how to start. They're not really hitting the ground running. And so you've got to unpick all the problems and all the issues with the building to make sure it's managed properly. That's a particular situation where, again, a professional property manager or professional advisor is certainly going to be
takes a lot of the stress out of it.
Helpful,
absolutely. So for the smaller investor owning 1 to 5 properties, do you have 3 things to do in the next 30 days? Do you think
in the next 30 days? I mean, I guess the smaller portfolio landlords, if you've got a buy-to-let or 5 buy-to-lets, your circumstances are really going to be dictated by your debt position. And if you are really not taking much net rental out of this portfolio, then a lot of people are saying to me, well, should I just cut and run? Should I sell these properties to put the money somewhere else?
We're getting exactly the same questions. A property that's stressful to run, I'm not actually getting much income from it, and it's flat from a capital perspective. So what should I do?
I mean, I've got a client who owns a flat debt free, buy-to-let flat debt free. The rental income is about £40,000 a year. 20,000 of that goes in service charges, maintenance, voids, management fees, letting fees, etc. So he nets £20,000 from a £40,000 rental flat.
Yeah.
So he's thinking that if he sells the property, and even after paying capital gains tax, he'll probably yield better than £20,000 in the money markets.
Yeah.
So his circumstances in that particular flat, in that particular block, with those costs, kind of putting him in a position where he might as well sell.
Yeah.
If you're getting a better net rental income out of your property, I guess you've got to look at the numbers. But there's a lot of clients whose buy-to-let properties are simply washing their face. It just about pays the bills. It just about pays the interest on the debt. And they're saying, what do we do? And there's a really strong argument to say you just sit tight and see how you get on. Capital values will hopefully come back, in the not too distant future. Interest rates are likely to fall in the next 2, 3, 4 years, you'd have thought. So it'll become more manageable. So if it's washing its face, it's better to own a property, perhaps arguably than speculating it elsewhere. So you might want to sit tight. Because if it's just washing its face now and you've got to get possession to sell it and then pay capital gains tax, you're probably not going to net much of a return at all.
So quite a lot we see with some highly geared portfolios that have issues from a tax perspective on not being able to deduct all of that tax from the income.
Yeah.
Lots of questions about incorporation and whether that is worthwhile. And quite often it's not. People come to talk to us thinking that it's an easy thing to do because they've been advised by their mate down the pub that it's something that could be done quite straight. And I think 50% of the time we don't even get any further than having one conversation because it's just not worth it. And there's so many things that impact on making a decision about to incorporate your property.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to pay stamp duty.
There are things that people talk about to avoid paying stamp duty and corporation relief, turning properties into a partnership. These are complicated, difficult and challengeable by HMRC.
But if you were setting out now and building up a portfolio, would you recommend someone incorporates and buys in a limited company or buys personally?
I think the point is it depends. What do you want to do with it? Are you looking to sell it medium term? Are you looking to get a capital gains tax on some uplift in value?
But if you're a long-term rental investor,
then in a company.
It feels like a worthwhile thing to do. Because you can deduct
the interest, corporation tax at a lower rate than income tax. So it makes sense. But as with every scenario, you've said every property, every scenario is different. So it's worth talking through.
Yeah, and we've got 50% of our clients are properties owned in limited companies. The others are owned by individuals. And each has its pros and cons from the way I see it from a non-accountancy point of view. I guess every circumstance is different.
Yeah. Okay. And are you where are investors still finding value, do you think, and what might be driving it?
Well, I think in London, there are, as I say, little nuggets of value, but finding it is like panning for gold. I mean, trying to unearth those,
and everyone's looking for it,
and everybody's looking for it, and there are property professionals that spending all day long, trying to find value. Whether it be in a planning play or some asset management on a commercial residential portfolio, that it's tricky to find. It's not obvious when you first find it often. But it's certainly out there from what I understand, and I don't deal in these markets, but certainly student towns, student lets in student towns seem to be quite strong. Someone I know bought a student let in Bristol at auction last week, and they're very positive about the potential returns there.
But again, increased regulation around HMOs and how they should be run.
You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to get it right. You've got to do it by the book. You've got to have the right licenses. You've got to have the right compliance measures in place. You've got to have a good builder. I mean, if you're having to refurbish something that you buy, the construction costs at the moment are the other big thing we haven't talked about that really make making money out of property very, very difficult. Other than interest rates, it's probably the other biggest factor. Certainly, they probably doubled in the past, 5 years? Certainly since inflation hit after the war in Ukraine started. You could refurbish a property easily for £150, £200 a foot in London. Now it's going to be costing you £350, £400 per square foot.
We used to see a huge number of young entrepreneurial property developers entering the market, buying a flat, block of flats, and doing them up and selling them on. And we just don't see that at all at the moment, just because the uncertainty, as you said, on interest rates and development costs.
I don't remember the last time we sold a property to a developer who was refurbishing in order to sell on. Yeah. It just the margins aren't there.
Yeah.
The third factor, interest rates, construction costs, stamp duty. Those are really the killers of that industry.
Yeah.
And if you can make money by buying, you've really got to buy it very, very well.
Yeah.
Once you've absorbed the stamp duty, paid a builder, and suffered some debt, you've got to be buying very well to be making a capital increase on a property.
But I suppose that the positive things that we should say about the property market is that, property market has been here before.
Yeah.
And we have come out of it. And these are cyclical, these things. They tend to be cyclical. So, as you said, if you have the ability to sit on and hold on and see how the market moves, then we should still be in a positive position in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I personally don't think we're ever going to be back to 2003, 4, 5, 6, where prices went up enormously and a lot of people were making a lot of money out of refurbishing and selling on properties. I think it's unlikely that's going to come back. I think if stamp duty is reduced or completely cut out after the next election, which is what's being, I think, promised certainly by the Conservative Party, and I've got a feeling the Reform Party are also suggesting massive stamp duty cuts. It'll be very interesting to see how that affects the market. A lot of people say it'll just be priced into the price, right? So if you're not paying 10% on stamp duty, the seller will expect an extra 10% on the price. Maybe
for a short term, maybe
that may well happen, and it probably will boost prices. The difference, of course, is it's not a transactional tax that you're paying. So if you're paying X for a property and it's worth X the day after you've bought it,
keeps it in the market, doesn't it?
If it's worth X minus the stamp duty, how do you get back to that point, especially in a market that's not rising? So I think that would really transform the transactional market in the UK.
I suppose
a big change to stamp duty is the biggest lever that anyone's got. I don't think there's no impact we can have on interest rates.
Well, there's the tax on interest rates, which on interest on property sale personally, which could have an impact.
What do you think? Would that ever happen? Was it MIRAS? Was that the interest rate relief scheme?
I think it's once it's there, once the tax is there, the revenue very rarely roll back on it if it's working. So unless there's a massive pushback, then I can't see that changing very quickly, even with a change of government.
It'd be fascinating to see how many transactions would be happening if there was no stamp duty to pay. It really would. I think at every point in the market, it would transform things. Whether that would improve the economy or not, I suppose is a question that someone else would need to answer. But certainly builders would be busy putting new kitchens in and new bathrooms. The rental market would be slower. Rents would probably come off a little bit. It'd be much more attractive to buy something. At the moment, if you're a tenant in London, or if you're a young person in London rather, looking to whether you're going to buy something or rent something, at the moment, it really does point you towards renting.
Of course it does.
It feels like you're in a better place to rent. Certainly, when my kids ask me, my recommendation to them will be rent something for the time being.
Yeah, especially if you're paying for it.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I mean, if you're renting, it's all the maintenance, all the problems in the property, all the service charges are someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And with the Renters' Rights Act, they have a lot more rights. They can stay there. If you want to nest as a tenant, you could never do that in the past because you could be kicked out at any time really by a landlord serving a Section 21 notice. That's gone. And so you're in a better place as a tenant in the UK now. So that's probably good news, certainly good news for tenants. Does make it more challenging for landlords. But I think overall, it's probably a good thing. But a slash in stamp duty would be fascinating to see.
So I think as well, people understanding what values actually are. I think there's uncertainty about how much a property is actually worth, whether it's residential or commercial.
Currently. I think there's a lot of noise online. There's a lot of noise online. I read a report this morning that only half the properties advertised on Zoopla or Rightmove ever sell. So the other half is just noise, and probably noise at an inflated, unachievable price. And what we're seeing certainly in my office and colleagues at other agents, that the actual transactions are actually happening, less than the price advertised on Rightmove generally. Occasionally, if something is priced correctly, you might get the asking price. But buyers really expect a discount at the moment because it's very much a buyer's market.
So I suppose finally, if you are looking to sell your personal property, how would you recommend getting the most value out of it? Is it, again, getting some planning in, getting things looking right?
Yeah, I think because construction costs are so high, buyers are reluctant to spend money on a property once they've bought it. So it's got to tick every box. Make the garden look really nice. Redecorate as best as you possibly can. Present their house properly, and then price it right. And have a plan as well. Will you go into rented if you can't find something to buy? Try and break the chain. Chains are not working. In a difficult market, trying to pull together 2 or more transactions simultaneously is really, really difficult. So I would suggest, have a plan to go into rented for a year or 2. You've got that protection now with the Renters' Rights Act. So you could potentially move into something for 3 or 4 months and serve notice, which is, again, gives a great flexibility. Price it right. It's all about pricing. If you price it at too much money, especially in a falling market, I think you're doomed from day one.
Thank you, David. That was a very insightful discussion. If anything we've spoken about today is of interest to you, please get in touch with us. More details can be found on our website.